Who has the better operating system, Microsoft or Linux? Let's take a look at the overview of current operating systems. Microsoft Windows is the most widely used operating system in the world. Windows 11 is also probably the most unpopular Windows of all time. Many people are now looking for an alternative, and OS X is out of the question for most. Many fear Apple's bad behavior towards customers, which Apple proves again and again with the iPhone. The pricing policy and the overpriced hardware also speak against it. People also don't want to be at the mercy of the next big company. The call for freedom is strong. So in the end, only an open source operating system remains. Here is a small overview of the most commonly used Linux operating systems. With OpenOffice, there is once again a new distribution for a long time, and not only that, they have over 3,000 employees, making them the largest distribution in the world. Distributions are organizations that maintain and develop the basic system, including the provision of the kernel. OpenOffice comes from China and is 100% open source. The code can be viewed and is publicly accessible, just like Debian. The most popular Linux distributions are based on Debian. Debian is already very old, reliable, and very stable. New features are only introduced when they work 100%. Debian 23 is the most popular Linux distribution in Asia. In the West, it is Linux Mint and Ubuntu. Linux Mint has been around for a long time and is becoming increasingly popular. It is free, looks like Windows, and can be used in exactly the same way. It can be installed on any PC or notebook that has an Intel or AMD CPU. It also supports all graphics cards from the major manufacturers, including NVIDIA. Linux Mint is one of the few developers to offer two active versions of its operating system. The Mint LNDE version 6, which is based on Debian, and the Mint version 22, which is based on Ubuntu. Although Ubuntu itself is based on Debian, they want to play it safe. Ubuntu is not always very cooperative and does not like to coordinate with the various open source developer teams in the world. The Mint LNDE version is therefore the backbone and is always supported and further developed. Both Mint versions look the same and have the same functions. The only difference is that version 22 offers more drivers and it is easier to integrate new ones. This is also possible with the LNDE version, but you have to do it yourself. The kernel version is older than version 22, which is based on Ubuntu. Both versions are 100% stable. It is often said that Linux is more secure than Windows. Basically, only an application firewall offers real protection in addition to the normal firewall. If an application or a Trojan wants to make a phone call home, the application firewall kicks in and the user must allow or deny the outgoing connection. Many applications almost always leave the system via port 80 or 443 and these are enabled on the firewall. In addition, many systems always allow outgoing connections. Linux can be made very secure, but Linux requires a lot of knowledge. Many Linux systems used in the private sector are usually not secure. Many unnecessarily open ports, poorly configured firewall, active root user and users with full root authorization. The file authorization system is not very modern and this leads to the biggest security gap. Many do not understand the file authorization system and have no interest in learning it. Without ACL, the authorization is very limited and restricted. Many assign too many rights and the wrong rights according to the motto, a lot helps a lot. The Linux interface has improved in recent years. However, various interfaces and a simplification for the normal user are still missing. Many tasks still have to be carried out via the console. The work planning in Linux is not very comprehensible. To date, nobody has bothered to change this. This makes many users shudder and leaves them dumbfounded. Something so simple can be so complicated. The integration of hard disks and other media is very different from Windows. This has to be learned first and then the old-fashioned file authorization system is used again. It is not easy in Linux. Without knowledge, many users are completely lost. The same applies if you want to copy files to a friend's hard disk or share files in a small network. Linux is all about knowledge and skills. Without Linux knowledge, its use is very limited and many people don't enjoy it. Spending hours on the internet to find a solution or help for every little thing, it is the prerequisite for using Linux. It is therefore not surprising why so few people use Linux voluntarily. The positive thing about Linux is that it is free, thanks to open source. Anyone can check the code. This ensures that there is no backdoor or that personal data or documents are secretly stolen. Linux has a driver for many things by default, but unfortunately not for everything. Some manufacturers offer a driver for a Linux. However, this is usually not worthwhile for a company. The market is too small. Linux currently has a market share of just 4%. The good thing is that there is almost no malicious software. The return on investment is simply not worth it. In Linux, it is not possible to create a live image of the system, which is not a problem for many. However, it would be desirable to be able to create a real snapshot. Unfortunately, this will never be possible. The structure of Linux does not allow this. Linux offers many desktop interfaces compared to Windows. Nevertheless, everyone has become accustomed to the basic principle that was introduced with Windows 95. Linux is much better represented in the server area than in the desktop area. Most companies in the world still use a Windows Server version. When it comes to special hardware that requires a real operating system, many rely on Linux. Everything is free, no licenses are required, and everything can be customized. Linux and Windows work flawlessly for multitasking tasks. There is no difference here. Windows cannot create a software RAID. A RAID controller is required for this. This is a strength of Linux to create a software RAID without a controller. This is very practical for desktop PCs or small servers. Of course, Linux also requires a controller for a high-performance RAID. Without a lot of knowledge about Linux, it is very difficult to become happy with Linux. It is a must to have this knowledge or to acquire it. For simple things like surfing the web or writing a letter, no knowledge is required. It takes a lot of time to acquire all the knowledge. Linux is not Windows. If you have a lot of time and enjoy learning new things, Linux is perfect for you. Those who know better things to do with their time should not embark on a Linux adventure. It is possible to play games with Linux. The support has improved with the Steam Deck. However, many tricks are required here too. Unfortunately, success is not always guaranteed. Some games only run on Windows. The price of Linux is unbeatable. Free, no advertising, and no bells and whistles or unpopular monitoring functions. Linux is not ready for the normal user, not by a long shot. If you have a lot of time and are prepared to learn a lot of new things and lose hours or days of your life, Linux is just right for you. For anyone coming from the Windows world, Linux is a shock. If you would like to try out Linux, you should first create an image of your PC before you embark on the Linux adventure and lose your Windows. There are various image and backup tools that can be used to create a USB boot stick. It is highly recommended to use such software with Windows as well. There is nothing easier than an image tool to back up and restore a PC. Here is a small overview of the best-known Linux programs in the Office, browser, mail, and communication areas. Here is another overview of the best-known Linux programs in the video, graphics, and audio area. And finally, an overview of the best-known Linux programs in the file and network area, plus various other programs. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.